Okay, let me try this again. Okay, let me try this again before I was so rudely interrupted by this internet. Uh, the Freedmen's Bureau lasted only 12 years in the United States. Only 12 years in which the so-called Black Americans had somewhat separation and independence from the United States. You know, and in them 12 years, the so-called black people, the former enslaved people, the freedmen, used their skills that they learned during slavery to market it for themselves, to build their own communities, build their own banking institutions, build their own communities. And after 12 years, the Freedmen's Bureau ended because the bank was robbed of all of its money. And it was a transitional period from 1875, when the Freedmen's Bureau ended, until 1886, when the 14th Amendment was passed. In those 11 years, a system of sharecropping happened, in which the black people were stripped of a lot of their land. They had to work with white people. And then the United States gave us the 14th Amendment, laying claim to the so-called American Negro, saying that because you was born here, you're now subjected to our laws, you're now slaves once again. And then what happened was they instituted Jim Crow segregation, and then they instituted terrorism from 1886 up until now. So the black people never really had freedom. Worse than the Taliban. The Taliban wasn't burning people alive and lynching whole and destroying whole cities in Afghanistan. They just, practice Sharia law, Islamic law, But the United States gave Afghanistan over $3 to $4 trillion in 20 years, more than the United States ever invested in the black community. The United States been robbing and destroying the black. Let me give you a parallel. When Bush became president, this was 2001. In Chicago, the census says from 2000 to 2010, Chicago lost 200,000 black people. Because Mary Daly was trying to get the Olympics, so he destroyed a lot of housing complexes that was built in the black community. And Rahm Emanuel, from 2010 upwards to 2018, he closed over 53 schools, destroyed over 22,000 buildings in the black community, the south and west side, the south side and the west side. So the United States, while they was giving Afghanistan trillions of dollars, while they was educating the Afghani women and children and men, building them up, civilizing them, building the infrastructure in Afghanistan, they were over here simultaneously destroying the black community all over the United States. And not only was they destroying the community verbatim, demolishing whole cities, giving poison water, toxic waste of water, not just in Flint but all over the place. They were actually killing the black people. Trayvon Martin, they talk about the Taliban is not going to respect women's rights, but the United States been taking women's children, killing women, black women, murdering them. In Chicago this week, because Joe Biden is importing these illegal aliens to Chicago, because this community that these people lived in, Grand and Austin, this is a Mexican community. And then the black people, hold on, who is this? Lashid for you, from my old school. But the black community was I know this neighborhood. This is next to Oak Park, and these are Mexicans, because Grand Street goes into a slant going northwest. And I'm pretty sure the ones who killed that little black girl probably was an illegal immigrant or a Mexican, because they've been killing blacks in Chicago. And then the Mayor Lightfoot is trying to hide it, sweep it under the rug, like it's not a race war going on right now between the blacks and the Mexicans. And it was started by the Mexicans last year. Yeah, my internet acting crazy. It says Austin's Hispanic now. It was all black though, man. There's Mexicans living over there all throughout Inglewood, the west side, but that's not even Austin because that's north. That's over there by North Avenue, by the street, Oak Park. Cause south of that is Oak Park. You see what I'm saying? And north of that is nothing but Mexicans, really. The blacks is losing a lot of territory on the west side, but when you go south past what street is that? Chicago Avenue, then it's blacks. It's blacks. But when you go north on the street called Oak Park, it's nothing but Mexicans over there. Then you go to Oak Park itself, it's nothing but it's some blacks in Oak Park, but there's really a lot of white people there. You see what I'm saying? But when you go south, and then you got Cicero. So if you take the street Austin, or if you take Central past Roosevelt, you in Cicero. Well, there's nothing but Mexicans over there. What I'm saying is, last year they was killing the black people in Cicero, Illinois, and in Little Village. Really, they was attacking black women. You know, all on YouTube. And it's crazy how this many Hispanics are all over Chicago with no paperwork. They got most of the jobs when it comes to like building and construction. They just go to Home Depot, they out there, and they just somehow are able to get things that the black people wasn't able to get. But I'm mentioning that because 2 black girls were shot and 1 died in a community where there's predominantly Mexicans, and the media is not talking about it. They saying it's just another situation. Who would shoot at little girls like that? You see what I'm saying? Who would just attack little girls like that? Other than somebody. And then this came out after the census revealed that the white population has decreased drastically, and then the Mexican population or the Hispanic population didn't really rise like they thought it would, because the so-called black population is still rising, and it's kind of offended them somehow. And they wanted to, like, the movie The Purge. If you watch The Purge 2, they say the killing wasn't happening fast enough, so the government tried to take it into their own hands to do the killing, to kill the blacks. You see what I'm saying? But the U.S. gave Afghanistan trillions of dollars in from 2001 up until 2021, built them up, made them independent, and then they really don't need you no more. You know, you done educated their children for 20 years, gave them the best education, you gave them the best weapons. They got tanks, they got Hummers, helicopters, stuff that we don't even have in America. The black people are not even capable of being independent, but you went over there and basically made these people independent, built after they allegedly destroyed the towers, and you rewarded them with $4 trillion. And then they say, we don't need you no more. Thank you for everything you did. Thank you for the Hummers. Thank you for the weapons. You know, and don't let the door hit you on your way out. You see what I'm saying? My internet crazy. But yeah, I want to make this my first live stream. But yeah, Cicero is crazy. I do not go through Cicero. I do not trust them racists, Mexicans, and the racist white people, because in the reality, the media don't tell people this. They would kill you just because you black. That's it. Just because you black, they'll try to kill you. But I don't really feel bad about the United States for looking embarrassed, because you shouldn't have been spending all this money in another country. It's like, say you got a person with children, right, that they neglect their own children, but they taking care of the children of the mistress, giving them all the money, while you neglecting your own. The black people over here looking silly because you've been closing the schools in the black community on the west and the south side, closing all these schools, demolishing all of these buildings, gentrifying neighborhoods, you know, and then you over there fixing up a whole nother country. And you didn't, you know, you go through Inglewood, it got worse when Obama and Biden was in there. They gave not $1 to Inglewood, and you over there sending trillions of dollars to Afghanistan. And they said we good now. You know, we got this presidential palace. We got everything you built. You just and we need all these educated people, because the U.S. tried to take all the educated people out of Afghanistan, like they did in America after the civil rights movement, in which a lot of the educated, skillful so-called black people was deceived into leaving the community. It was a brain drain. What the Taliban did, because I'm watching the news, the Taliban wouldn't let none of the Afghan citizens leave, and they said we need these people with education to help to continue leading the country. We need these skilled people. We're not finna let them go. But the U.S. said we can't lead them. We trained these people, and if they stay there, they might be able to build the country up and lead them to prosperity. They say, "Oh, we controlling the airport, and we're going to make sure none of these skilled, educated people are going to leave," which was a brilliant move. Something that the so-called black people didn't think about, when a lot of them ran to the hills after integration. Ran to what's his name, Percy Julian, the scientist who developed the steroids and the liquid crystals, messing with the carbon atom. This fool moved to Oak Park, and they wrote on his house, "Nigga, go home." John H. Johnson, his building downtown, Ebony Building, now is owned by Columbia College. Like, these idiots don't have anything right now. Afghanistan and all of these countries learned from what the U.S. really did to the so-called black people. Totally destroyed the mentality, the history, the economy, everything. The abortion rate, 50 million abortions, but it's estimated that the so-called black American women was deceived into getting over 30 million abortions. And then they adopted the philosophy of being single mothers, in which they didn't have a family structure. The man was seen as the enemy. The problem with they say the man was the reason for poverty, even though the Ku Klux Klan and the U.S. government and all these policies, the slavery, you done forgot about all of that. Now the blame is on the black man, and then they're gonna give you what, $100 a month? How much was that? A couple of $100 a month for food stamps after you done threw the man out the house. You know, you gotta not be married in order to get so-called welfare. And then a lot of these women actually accepted that. These so-called black women accepted that in the United States. And you know they knew who the enemy, like Emmett Till got murdered when he was in the South in the 1950s. You telling me that black women have forgot about that and then accepted the fact that the government told them that the black man is the reason for poverty and the black children is the reason? If you kill the if you get these abortions, you will not be in poverty anymore. You still gonna be broke if you got children or not. That's not how it happened. How did it happen? How did it happen? What happened? You telling me that the masses of the so-called black women didn't accept the reality that the man was seen as the problem, the black man? It's just like they saying that the Taliban is the problem over there, which is the Afghan man, the Afghani men. But the people have decided that they need them back. They need the warrior class back. That's why they didn't shoot not one. They didn't bust not one grape. They let them in. Let them take the whole country because they knew they needed them. This is their country, but in the United States, the man still ain't got no power. And then what the Taliban did, I don't know why Afghanistan had prisons, but they had a lot of people in prison, just like the United States. And then the Taliban opened up the jails. Hold on. And dumped black men for welfare. It didn't happen like that. That's a new narrative. I'm gonna tell you something that happened to me. My mother and father is really old. They're from like down south, so they was actually married, and the government wouldn't give them nothing because they was married. And then what happened was it caused some type of division in the family because my mother realized that she had so many children, but because she was married, she couldn't really get any money from the government. So she was trying to get divorced. She was trying to sabotage the marriage for years. And the motivation was to get that money that they would not give her. Because my father, he was an old school dude, from Mississippi. So he wasn't trying to get no divorce. But, everybody, like most of the other people in the neighborhood, was getting a lot of money from the government because they was like single mothers. But we couldn't get we couldn't even get food stamps. We couldn't even get food stamps from the government. So you telling me that wasn't motivation? If you got 10 kids, you get a check from each child, and then what they did was to mess up the child's education. They started giving women money who put them in special education, and they would get actually more money. And that was really targeting for the next 20-30 years. We're going to give you money if you put your child in special ed. The child going to actually get improper education by being in special ed. And then when they become of age, they're not going to have any skills. They're going to be stigmatized because the government tricked the women into getting money. They didn't just give the black community $4 trillion and just say, okay, here go a monthly stipend, like they do the so-called Native Americans, the white people pretending to be Indians. They just get a check sent to them every month. Or just white people in general, they just get money just sent to them, or they just get a job making $200,000 a year, just sitting in a desk doing nothing. That's like welfare, like corporate welfare with the black people. In order for you to get the crumbs, you got to put your child in special ed, or you got to be a single mother. You got to really destroy your future for these crumbs. They didn't do no, like even right now, when the so-called illegal immigrants come in, they allocate billions of dollars to give to them for housing, for to learn English, to just to get money, just so they can sustain themselves. That's why you never see them like under a bridge. You drive through Chicago, you got about 20 tent cities, and most of them permeates with black people. Like on Ruble Street, off of Canal Port, you go down on Canal Port, and you go down there to make that left to go to Pilsen. All you see is you'll see about 30, 40, 50 black people under that bridge. You see what I'm saying? Then you go down Lakeshore Drive. Hold on. No man in the households. Hold on, let me read that. Hold on, let me read it. No, that's not how it happened. No man in the household, reduce the marriage rate. Well, ain't no woman gonna go manless to get a measly $200 check. I mean, you multiply 200 times 6 children, and back then you could live off $200. Like now, because of the inflation rate, I remember 1 penny could get you a lot. You see what I'm saying? The penny candy, you get like a lot of cookies. 10 cent was a lot of money in like 90, 87. You get 10 cent, you could get all types of stuff with 10 cent. But with the inflation rate now, but $200 ain't really worth now because I think the inflation rate is about 3%. So every year the dollar reduces by 3%. But at one point, 200 was a lot of money, especially when you multiply it by, because black women used to have a lot of children. They used to have about 12 kids. That was normal. And then when the abortion rate happened, then the women liberation movement, really the white women corrupted the whole world. Really, the white women corrupted black women because they was introducing the porno thing to be what you call it, promiscuity. All of that was introduced and embraced heavily in the 1970s, the so-called sexual revolution. Hold on. The men would still be in the household, also benefiting from the welfare check, Section 8, etc. That's why they would sing songs. It's the first of the month. You talking about Bone Thugs that came out in like 1995. What I'm saying is though, you watch the movie Claudine, the black man could not be in that household because they had social workers. Even in the projects, that white woman or that white man social worker show up at that front door and they go through the house to make sure that man ain't there or make sure there's no evidence, because if they found out it was a man in the house, they was gonna kick that woman out, kick her out the projects, and because they wouldn't give you anything. I'm telling you, I know this for a fact. If you was in the 1970s, the 1980s, and you was a married couple, the government wasn't giving you nothing. I used to be a caseworker in the you already know that you had to go show up at the door to go make sure ain't no man in the house so you could take them wealth. We had all them projects in the 90s, that Daily and Ramen. Maybe we had the Robert Taylor's, we had Stateway Gardens, we had I think Stateway is hold on, it was so many projects. And I remember they destroyed the project complex in order to build the UIC the dorms, but it's still some black people over there tucked into the corner. And then we had Cabrini Green, which a lot of the buildings are still there, but they gentrified the area and moved a whole bunch of Caucasians over there and built it up. But it was a lot of public housing. Then the Ida B. Wells buildings they destroyed. So understand, I'm nearly 50 years old now. I actually worked for a non-profit organization outside Chicago. But yeah, I'm saying that it was all a trick. They put all of these black women, they tricked them in the 70s to get a lot of them in this see what I'm saying? You already know Cabrini Green over there now. That's off Division. That's the by the Gold Coast, and they trying to kick all the black people out, but it's still black people over there. Then North, Lincoln Park had a black population that they basically eliminated. They say in 10 years, in the census that was released a couple of days ago, they say from 2000 to 2010, Chicago lost 100,000 people. No, 200,000 people. It's because they destroyed all of them public housing complexes. Then they gentrified the north side. A link to what? A link to what? What you want a link for? What you need a link for? But yeah, I'm talking about Afghanistan is an embarrassment because the U.S. government has been neglecting the black people for over, let's say, they made us U.S. citizens in 1886. Do I have that ability? I'm using this thing called OBS. I need to get. I don't know how to do that. I need to get a more modern streaming platform because the thing I'm using is so generic. I'm only able to just stream I don't know what these other people be using, like StreamYard and all of that. I don't even have that. You see what I'm saying? I don't even have that. I gotta upgrade this streaming, because usually when I stream, I have another channel, and I just stream video. I don't really stream on this channel like that. I'll be having pre-recorded stuff. But I would say this though. Let me look at this. Because the U.S. government deceived the black people into being U.S. citizens. Yeah, I think I need StreamYard. But OBS is like open source, and there's no fee or nothing. You don't even have to sign into it. It's just some free software that that YouTube provides. It's not really YouTube, but it's open source. OBS. But StreamYard, I know people be doing all types of fancy stuff with that. You know, having all types of people on there. You know, but the black community should be outraged finding out that the U.S. government basically built Afghanistan up after they allegedly destroyed the buildings, and then Pakistan was housing the Al Qaeda and the Taliban the whole time, and the U.S. didn't do anything to Pakistan. And then Pakistan should have been building up Afghanistan, but the U.S. went over there and gave them trillions of dollars, and then basically made them a sovereign nation. You free now after we gave you all this money. Yeah. I'm gonna try to see about the StreamYard situation. OBS is just free. It's complicated. You got to be almost like a tech savvy person to use it, because they don't really show you how to do anything. You just figure it out. But once you figure out how to use OBS, it's really robust. You can do a lot of great things. Other than, I'm pretty sure it's a way to actually bring other people in. I just haven't really needed to, so I never really looked into that. But yeah, you know, let me ask you a question though. In the last, I'm gonna prove it too. I'm gonna prove it right quick. Let me prove it right quick. I'm gonna prove it live, and then I'm gonna ask the question, because I know for a fact that the 14th Amendment was created. Hold on. It was created to undermine the black people, but it was created in 1886. It was created in 1886, and the Freedmen's Bureau lasted from 1865 up until 1875. So that's only like 10 years. Hold on. Well, this 14th Amendment, watch this. I'm gonna get the dates when it was passed, and I'm gonna show it. Here you go, right here. Hold on, let me do this. Hold on, let me do this. Let me do this right quick. Okay. They claim it was passed by the Senate in 1866 and ratified in 1868. 14th Amendment, citizen to all person born and naturalized in the United States. So I say I was wrong. It was 1868. So that was 3 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. Hold on. Yeah. So they did that quick. So the Freedmen's Bureau was an organization that was dealing with people who they made into U.S. citizens, who they forced into U.S. citizenship in 1868. That's birthright citizenship. When they come over here, like Kamala Harris, both of her parents were foreigners. They were both foreigners from Jamaica. But Kamala Harris' mother is an East Indian. And they just came here on vacation and had a baby. And because she was born in America, Kamala Harris was made into a U.S. citizen. But I think she was raised in Canada. She wasn't even raised in the United States, but yet she could be the president, because they're talking about possibly impeaching Biden for his handling of the Afghanistan situation by running for the hills, and left all the technology, left all the money. You know, they had banks over there that the Taliban finna get that. You know, they left all the money, left all the equipment running, and people flying off of rooftops, running from the Taliban. As you done built them up like that. But at the same time, we still protesting for so-called justice, protesting to not be murdered by the police, to not be brutalized and imprisoned. But the one thing the Taliban did that is prophetic is they opened up the prisons, because the U.S. government had a prison industrial complex in Afghanistan, locking up the men, and they was let free. And that should happen here. They should open up the prisons, because a lot of these crimes that people are in jail for is indirectly inspired by the U.S. policies, the poverty policies. And then the most disturbing thing is Chicago has people selling marijuana free and legally, white people. And you still got people locked up for 20, 30 years for some pounds of weed. And that's so-called legal, but you're not opening up the jails. You're not opening up the prisons. You know, the Taliban opened up the prisons and freed the people. Hold on. Let me take that off. But yeah, I'm just talking about the U.S. government and Biden did more to help the Taliban than they did to help the black American people. You know, what schools did they build in the black community in the last 20 years? I could tell you 53 that they destroyed and closed in Chicago alone. Hospitals. There's a hospital they just destroyed in Chicago Heights this year. And then you got Michael Reese Hospital in Bronzeville, they just demolished. And then you got a hospital in Melrose Park, they just demolished. I think last 2 years. So they're destroying hospitals and destroying schools in the black communities. Not just Chicago. I'm pretty sure if you look at the whole country, it's happening. Destroying our hospitals and our schools and our infrastructure and our buildings. And then you go into a whole nother country talking about women's rights, talking about empowering people. This lets me know, this gives me the idea that the United States government don't see black people in the future. We're being exterminated. We're being annihilated bit by bit. They say in 20 years, according to their logic, if they keep this up, closing schools, closing hospitals, and the abortion rate, and then the homosexual rate, trying to convince all the black people to be homosexuals, they really want to dismantle the birth rate and increase the death rate. But I was reading a statistic about the birth rate of white people in America. They were saying the birth rate of the white people in America in relation to the death rate is less than 1 to 1. That means that they have more people that die than there are being born. And when you look at mathematics like this, it's a certainty that at one point you're going to be extinct because you're not even producing enough to replenish your dead population. But when the black people, when they compared it to the so-called black people in America, and you got to calculate all of the people that's in prison who can't even reproduce. Then you got to look at all the people that's being murdered. You got to look at all the abortions, right? And all the death that's happening. With all of the death and all of the non-births that's happening, the black people are nearly 2 to 1. That means for every 2 people that's born, 1 person dies. So the black people are replenishing themselves and actually are doubling their population amidst all of this poverty, because they say poverty is like a disability because people judge your economic status when it comes to, courtship and reproduction. A person with a higher economic status, has a better chance of reproducing and being chosen as a desirable spouse solely because of their economics. Right, you see what I'm saying? They've been doing it, but it's not going to happen because they say the children of Israel are going to be like the sand of the sea and the stars of heaven. They can't get rid of they can't do that, but they've been trying, though. They've been exhausting the resources. If you look at the budget that they probably have towards annihilating and exterminating black people, it might be into the trillions. You got to look at the budget that they use to bring in all of these illegal immigrants, and then to give them resources in industries and infrastructure to try to destroy the black people. After all of this sabotage and annihilation, the black population is still 2 to 1. It's 2 born for every 1 that die. You see what I'm saying? And for the white people, it's less than 1 to 1. I think it's like 0.8 or 0.9 to 1. So they could calculate exactly. And then they say the population of elderly people, white elderly people, is higher than the population of people that's 18 and older. So when our elderly people drop, that's why they're keeping them pumping, giving them hearts and livers and kidneys to keep that elderly population going. Because when that population go, their population going to drop drastically. And the COVID is speeding that up. So when you do this wickedness, evil towards a people, it's like it's coming back on you. It's coming back. And then they ran out of Afghanistan. Like cowards, ran up out of there, fled to the hills. Looking at them video, and the Taliban didn't even have to shoot not one shot. They just walked in, took all that money, took all them weapons, taking all the women. You see what I'm saying? Taking everything, taking all the houses, and then us in America, We can't even have freedom. Can't even have a city that's not ruled by so-called white supremacy. Can't even have a school that's not ruled and dictated to. You can't even have your own household. You can have your own household if you economically independent, but still they impose taxes on you. They got something called eminent domain, in which the government can seize your property and give you $10 like they did the Indians, the Indian Removal Act. So you got a constant threat of being destroyed in this country. This is like the worst type of oppression, because you can't. And then in this city, Chicago, I listen to the news, right? People just be standing outside the club, and then somebody get to shoot 5, 6, 7 people. So you can't even just stand outside and enjoy yourself. And then 2 girls get shot on the west side. They trying to say the north. That's not the northwest side. That's over there by Oak Park, where them 2 girls got shot. You can't even just be outside because they targeting you. This is like extreme misery. But in Afghanistan, they say they have like no violence, really. They could go a whole year without a person getting shot. In Chicago, you can't even go one day without a person getting shot, let alone a whole country. Imagine if you got United States and there's like not one person got shot in a whole country. That's how it is, because this is what I was really inspired by to make this video. What the United States did was they proved that economics is the solution. When they invested trillions of dollars into Afghanistan, they reduced the crime and a violence rate by 1 million times by just building schools, building institutions, educating the people, and giving them money. They cut the murder rate to 0 in the whole country. I remember last year Trump was talking about it, saying that the whole country of Afghanistan had no murders. Yet Chicago has all these murders going on because the United States government is not doing for Chicago what they did for Afghanistan. They're not pouring trillions of dollars into the community. Because if they pour trillions of dollars into Chicago, there will be no need for the murder rate. There will be no need to go out there selling no drugs, or the women out there prostituting on the internet, getting into these cars, being killed by these strange people. They say, I was listening to this YouTube video about a man asked Lori Lightfoot about the 500 black women they found dead in garbage cans in Chicago, and she ignored it. She had nothing to say about it. Let me just read this. How much is paid yearly to the state of Israel, to the false Israelis, to fake Israelis, for so-called defense? The U.S. gives the state of Israel millions. They give Israel $30 billion a year. That's just what we know about. And then Israel runs a lot of industries, culture industries, so they making money off that. And that's just the aid that they get, $30 billion a year. But they probably making hundreds of billions, probably trillions of dollars, because the Jews own too many industries. They own the NBA, they own the NFL, they own all the news apparatuses, they own a lot of the manufacturing, a lot of the farming goods, a lot of the insurance companies, the media, Hollywood, owned by Israelis. But they just get $30 billion that we know about given to them in aid, not counting all the money and all the business industries that they own in the United States. That's what they get, at least $30 billion, but upwards into the trillions off of the United States. You see, their crime rate is very low. See, the crime rate is high in places in which poverty prevails. And when poverty prevails, they have a place for you, prison, because they know you're gonna go and steal something out of the store, and they're gonna lock you up. What they say? Yeah, billions. Yeah, they get reparations. They get reparations from the United States too, because they claim that Franklin Roosevelt could have acted earlier. And the funny thing is that we have family. I'm pretty sure you have family too that was in World War II, liberating Jews from concentration camps in Poland, and fighting Nazis in Germany or in Italy, all over Europe. The black people was over there liberating them countries and got nothing out of it. No, the Jews don't even thank the black people who liberated them from them concentration camps. That's how low down they are. It's not like the Jews was fighting fighting for their own freedom. They wasn't fighting no Nazis. They actually claim that the Jews was actually helping the Nazis. They was actually in there working in the concentration camps against their own people. Jews. They wasn't fighting back. So they got these fantasy movies out, but the reality is I have a blood family that was in World War II fighting in Germany. I actually got a great uncle that actually married a German woman, because Germany had blacks living there. Like in Hamburg. Say Hamburg was the second biggest city and had the largest black population in Germany. And they still live there. You know, but the black people in America went over there and freed them. They say they wouldn't even won the war if it wasn't for the black Tuskegee Airmen. But you get nothing. They don't even thank you. Who is this, my bro? Tamir. You get no thanks. You get nothing. What's going on, Mr. Tamir? Yeah, I'm making this video about Afghanistan is getting all the money while we gets nothing. Oh yeah, I heard about that Tut language. I don't know nothing about it though. I don't know nothing about it. You know, I gotta ask my mother, does she know it? But United States gave Afghanistan all the money while they gave me nothing. Not even $1. I got not $1 from Obama. I got no dollars from Bush. Nothing. But they was giving the Afghani people all the money. Free education. They was giving them what's it giving them? Yeah, they was giving them schools. They was giving all the women businesses, because they was really trying to court the women, because they said the women was being oppressed by the Taliban, so they was trying to build up the Afghan women. Yeah, they claim it's a language called the Tut language they were speaking in the South and during slavery. They claim Pig Latin was one of them that they was messing with the remember the Three Stooges used to talk about Pig Latin? It was like a coded language that the black people was using in order to not let the white man know what they was talking about. So they was like scrambling the words, and they all knew exactly what the scrambled words was, like how we do now. You know, you listen to the Hot Boys. I think they got that in a lot of their songs, because it was like really popular down in Louisiana and Mississippi, the Tut language. Then they had the Grapevine. But yeah, I feel insulted knowing that Afghanistan got all the money, while Chicago lost 200,000 people in 10 years. 200,000 people from 2000 to 2010, while Afghanistan was getting trillions of dollars from the United States. And while the so-called black women was being forced into like low wage jobs. What's that? Yeah. yeah, that's like they actually had a whole language. You You know about that? That was actually a understood language that the white man, they call it. It's like the origin of Ebonics, when it was like a whole nother language. He was able to scramble the words, and they would say when they scrambled the words, they was actually teaching people how to spell the words. I was listening to Tariq Nasheed talk about it on his latest podcast, the Tut language. You see what I'm saying? They claim they still use it. They still use it. And then the double Dutch, they say when they actually, another word for the language is double Dutch. And they claim when them girls be playing double Dutch, they be using the Tut language. You see what I'm saying? I don't even know how they even able to do that. The double Dutch, I don't even know how it's even humanly possible to play that game. But they be doing it. Jumping rope, double Dutch. Jumping, they had whole competitions about double Dutch. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, the black people had all types of ways to keep the communication secret from the white people, because they knew the white man was trying to sabotage and undermine. But you look at Afghanistan and how they left them with all them tanks, all them missiles, all of that technology, all that money. I think it's probably either they just the most idiotic people in the world, or they probably gave it to them for some reason. Built them up, built their whole country up. Built their whole country up. And then just left. They claim the Dutch was so-called Moors. Like Harlem is actually in the Netherlands. Did you know that? Like Harlem, New York. They claim the so-called Dutch was Moors. You look that up. But the so-called Dutch was here before the British, with the Native American, with the Indians. But I'm saying double Dutch is when they got the two ropes, when they be jumping rope. You see what I'm saying? But the language is like, they call it double Dutch because it's so hard. Like, it's almost like jumping rope. Like, you hear this person talking about it, they don't know what you're talking about if they just not in tune with it. But yeah, I don't what y'all think about Afghanistan getting trillions of dollars and we ain't getting nothing. We got nothing. You know, they ain't give us nothing. They destroyed. You look at Inglewood. Inglewood ain't getting nothing. Roseland ain't getting nothing. It was over there building up Afghan women, helping the Afghani women. Well, the black women here wasn't getting nothing. What's that say? I don't know. That New York was. It was called New Amsterdam first. Oh yeah, it was New Amsterdam. Then it was called New York. Well, when it was New York, and when it was New Amsterdam, the Indians had a huge population of. Really, when it was New York, it was a huge population. It was only until the United States took it that they kicked all the Indians out. You know, they gave them all the money. You know, trillions. They talk about. I listened to this lady named Yvette Carnell. She talks about America need to pay us $20 trillion in reparations. But if you calculate, Afghanistan got $4 trillion in 20 years, right? And you take 20 years time 5, that's 100 years. So in 100 years, Afghanistan would have got 20 times 5, 20, and then 5 times 4. Afghanistan would have got $20 trillion in 100 years, right? But the United States didn't give us nothing in 100 years. They gave them equivalent to reparations that we supposed to be getting. Built up that whole country. You see what I'm saying? Built up the whole country, and we ain't getting nothing. What you think about that? The majority of taxpayers' money is usually spent on military. That's how. And then you gotta look at this. The taxpayers are really blacks because white people don't pay no taxes. They don't pay no taxes. The black people pay all the taxes. We paying reparations to whole other countries, and we can't even, like this guy named Tariq Nasheed. He's trying to raise money for a museum, right? He can't even do that, and they over there giving trillions of dollars to Afghanistan, and a black man can't even get $1 million to build up a museum. See what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure you go to Afghanistan, they got America built museums for them. What else they built? They built parks, skyscrapers for them. Built the whole infrastructure for a whole nother country, and then dipped. Got up out of there. You go through Inglewood, it's like go through Harvey. Hey, you drive through Harvey, it's like a horror movie. Like you can film a scary movie in Harvey, Gary. You go through Gary, you look like the Book of Eli. You go through Inglewood, like a horror show. The buildings all ran down, boarded up, the roofs caving in. And then Afghanistan, it looks better than Inglewood. And then the Taliban walked in and opened up the jails so they could get all the money that the U.S. government, Joe Biden, gave to them. What are we gonna do about this? What are we gonna do about this? These white men running the government, passing out all this money to everybody else except me. What are you gonna do about it? What should we do about it? You know, most people are stuck. We're as a whole, when you look at the average person, we have been brainwashed to believe that there's no life without being dictated by the so-called white man. We have been deceived like that, to think that there is no way to exist without the so-called white man. So you come up with an idea saying we need to separate from the so-called America, the United States, or we need to demand that we get these trillions of dollars, like the Afghanistan people. You know, they got the crazy part is they blame Afghanistan for destroying the buildings, but they ended up giving them all that money after doing that damage. Gave them $4 trillion, and we over here marching. What's this? You need to, they need to give up that money. The money you giving out to Afghanistan, I need some of that. You know, we ain't even got enough money to fix up our own neighborhoods because the wages they paying ain't enough. The little jobs they providing, it's not enough. Like we go downtown right now. Like what they did was Chicago with Rahm Emanuel, because Chicago has a budget. You know, in order to get money to pay for some things, you have to make cuts and other things. So Rahm Emanuel, he cut a lot of the programs in the black community. Then he closed a lot of the public housing complexes and closed a lot of schools. Then he funneled the money to the West Loop, the Fulton Market area, the Riverwalk, and then all these skyscrapers, and built that up. And then you go downtown right now in Chicago, the skyscrapers are empty because the coronavirus, you know, can't nobody afford $5,000-$6,000 a month. But you put billions of dollars into these skyscrapers downtown for white people, of course, and they can't even afford it now. So who's gonna live in these skyscrapers? Yeah, they take the money, they close I'm talking about they closed institutions that the government finances. that was going to black people, like hospitals, schools, public housing complexes. They closed that. Now you got a surplus of money. This is in any business. You cut costs in some areas. Like usually a business will cut costs by firing people, because employees is not corporate employees are considered a business expense. So when they fire people, they actually get profits that they don't have to pay for this business expense. Then they just funnel that to their own self and get themselves a raise or something, or a bonus that they done laid off about 4,000-5,000 people. Or they could use that money that they laid these people off, close that whole building, so they ain't got to pay no mortgage, no nothing, no taxes on that building. They just closed the building, fired everybody. Now all that extra money they got, they could put towards something else. But the government do the same thing, you know, especially Chicago. And then the black people are usually the ones that they make cuts towards, you know, cuts towards fixing on sidewalks, cut towards fixing on streets, so-called city services, and everything looks or cleaning, like normal cleaning, so the community looks raggedy, dirty, dusty, and all the buildings all boarded up. You see what I'm saying? And then you'd go 3-4 miles north in like a whole nother world where the white people are. Like, say you in the Austin neighborhood and you just drive north, and then you see Humboldt Park, and then you see Logan Square, and then everything just gradually looks better. You know, or say you on the south side in the hundreds and you on Halstead, everything ran down, and then you go up north on Halstead, everything's flourishing in the same exact city in real time. But this is a reason for it. The black people are the ones that they decided to always extract from, like a cattle, like a farm. You got the barn. Whenever you need profits, you know, you could go chop up a cow, sell the meat, you know, get that. What they say? They stopped funding the programs that gave the children different avenues. Of course, because they need the gangs in order to fill up the jails. They need the poverty. When the kids in the program, and then they need the money that they was going to the programs. And they closed down the YMCA. So when they closed down the YMCA, the kids that had nowhere to go after school was but to the block, to the streets. Usually they used to go play basketball and swim and stuff like that. And then when they closed down the YMCA, 2 years later, everybody locked up for murders or everybody dead, you know, filling up the jails, the court system, the morgue, the lawyers, the jobs, the white collar jobs is based on black annihilation and destruction. Social workers, what else? Public defenders, judges, you know, building inspectors going around condemning buildings, and you got the demolition teams knocking down buildings, digging up a street. You know, this is how they just feeding off of the misery of black people. And if you look at, if this continues and they just destroy, if they just what they call it, mine, this is like mining a resource. Let's say we say you found a quarry and it's rich in iron. You go over there and digging it in. Then you're gonna have eventually you're gonna have a big hole. And then when there's no more iron there, or say you got a gold mine, you go in there digging in, you're gonna dig a huge hole. And then once there's nothing left, you're just gonna dip, you're gonna leave. This is how the black community is gonna end up. It's gonna be a wasteland because they make money off knocking down buildings. You know, they make money off throwing people in jail. Eventually, there's gonna be no more people to throw in jail because they're not replenishing what they destroy. And you knocking down all these buildings, but you're not building nothing to replace it with. You're gonna look and see a wasteland because they making money knocking down these buildings. And the judges, they got these demolition courts, and they got these criminal courts. And then if there's no more criminals to lock up, you know, the judge gonna eventually go out of business if there's no crime, because for one, you need people in order to, you know, for crime. You need people to commit the crimes. If there's no more people, because you done extracted the people to nothing, or they just decided to leave and move out the neighborhood, then the jail gonna close because they're not gonna have anybody to lock up. The courthouse gonna close. Then the restaurant's gonna close because there's nobody living in the neighborhood to eat the food or to go to the, or they too scared to walk outside to go to the store to purchase the groceries or the restaurant products. And the clothing stores closed because there's no more people because the government then extracted them to nothing, to the bone. Everybody's dead, locked up, or moved to another city. And it's but in Afghanistan, they was putting money into that community, building the people up, building up their infrastructure, their institutions, building up their esteem, their education. And now they say we are independent. There's no more need for you. They didn't even thank you. They just said, get up out of here. And they ran to the border, ran to the hills, flying off the roofs and helicopters, left them with all them tanks and Hummers and helicopters. The airplanes. Afghanistan got airplanes, skyscrapers. They probably got farms. But when you go to Inglewood, you don't see nothing. Boarded up buildings and just pistols. Everybody got guns, shooting. A person got a gun before they got a business. He's just riding around with guns. The United States is more dangerous than Afghanistan. Because the United States put money into that country, and they didn't put no money into the black people. We don't even have that many black banks. We don't have any really no real institutions. Really, they all have been destroyed. They all have been annihilated. Where is the prosperity that was promised? Martin Luther King then was marching, talking about integration, talking about boycotting the white people's economy, asking a president to sign legislation, asking the government to build housing, and they just didn't want to do it. But the ironic thing was when Martin Luther King was marching, very similar to now, the United States was putting billions of dollars into Saigon, into Vietnam. Saigon was like the city that they was trying to Americanize Saigon. And that's right at the edge of the China Sea. They didn't even get past Saigon. Gave them all them tanks, gave them all them billions of dollars, and they had to flee. And he gave them all that money. Billions. He was giving it Saigon or Vietnam. He was giving them billions of dollars while blacks was begging the government for decent housing. And King was talking about that. He's spending, and it's right now. You're giving Afghanistan billions of dollars, and you closing black people's schools. They claim the reason they closed the schools was because the enrollment was low. Because the enrollment was low because of the abortion rate, the poverty rate, the murder rate. People moved out the community. People got murdered. People not having children because they locked up. So in 10, 20 years, you're not going to have any children to fill up the schools, or people don't want their kids to go to to live in this neighborhood. So they justify closing it because they say it's not the low enrollment. It's like you could predict a problem, you don't do nothing to solve it, and then you're gonna say, okay, we gotta react to the inevitable by destroying you even more, closing your schools or your banks, knocking down your buildings. They say because the building is vacant, it needs to be knocked down. Instead of saying we're going to come and educate the people in order to have to learn how to use the building, and then give them the money to, start it off, and then let them flourish. They say, oh, since the building is vacant, we got to tear it down. And they come and tear down the whole neighborhood, and it's just sitting there vacant in the black community. But yeah, that's what I want to talk about. I don't want to be talking all day, because it's like me just running my mouth. Yeah, it's the money went to Afghanistan. They gave all the money to Bin Laden. Paid them. Gave them all the money. They wasn't giving me nothing. Only time they gave us some money was Trump. When Trump was in there. And then people went over there and voted him out. He must have looked at how much money they've been given. It's almost like the United States is under extortion. Everybody think that they got to get money from this country. Everybody think this country owe them something. People from all over the world want to come here, and when they come here, they feel like they're entitled to the best. Yet they couldn't get nothing in their own country. You can't get nothing in your own country. How you feel you gonna get something from another person's country? But that's what's been happening. They've been coming to this country getting all the money they need, and then they get all the money sent to them, and then the black people sitting there looking silly and getting nothing. You're not getting nothing, not even $1, and you somehow satisfied with that. Oh, the reason that's poverty because of the black people. That's what they say. The black people is the problem, not the trillions of dollars that the government sent out to other countries. And they say, okay, why you ain't do nothing? Why you ain't build nothing? Why you ain't build nothing? I would say because you destroyed all of our banks. There's no financial institutions, and then you got all these white people banks in the black community, all these U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo, Chase, and they not giving you nothing. You got your money in their banks, and you can't even access your own capital that you have sitting around in their banks. Then what are you going to do without no money other than take it? What they call it, conquests. That's the only other option. Or people could just take their money out the white people's banks, and then they got us scared because every time that the black people tried to be free and rich, the white people came and destroyed them and took all their money. And the Caucasian white judges ain't do nothing about it. The government ain't do nothing about it. Nobody went to jail. He's just killing blacks, taking all their money, stealing all their land, stealing all their intellectual property, stealing all their creativity. They say, why you ain't do nothing? We ain't even got 100 years worth of legacy. Not even 20 years worth of legacy without being destroyed. Yeah, people need to be thinking about this stuff. They gave Afghanistan $4 trillion in 20 years. But telling us they ain't got no money. They're not talking about getting the money back. They just gave it away. You get a student loan, they still sending you a letter talking about they need their money. And you done gave Afghanistan $4 trillion with no debt, no nothing. And you sending people a letter talking about some student loan, poor, subpar education, for-profit schools. scamming the black people or scamming American people, talking about you gonna have a career, not telling you got to be a part of some clique, some guild to get into that industry. But you didn't tell that to Afghanistan though. You went over there and built them a whole industry, built them a whole functional economy, and didn't charge them nothing. And you gonna send me a bill, some red light ticket, what they call it, a red light ticket, $100 ticket, because you ran a so-called red light, or they send you a bill for some registration, insurance. They send you all these bills, but you sent Afghanistan $4 trillion, and then nobody saying nothing about it. And then you left them with, not only did you get them $4 trillion, you gave them helicopters. I don't know how much some helicopters worth. Military helicopters. They got fighter jets, missiles, tanks, vehicles. Ain't no telling what type of technology they left over there. That's probably worth billions of dollars. Just the equipment alone. And you got people over here can't even afford to buy a house. Finna get evicted, can't even afford to pay rent. You got $4 trillion to pass out to Afghanistan. What Afghanistan did for anybody to deserve $4 trillion? What they invented? They ain't invent nothing. But the so-called black people that invented everything. Everybody is the whole world is benefiting off of the intellectual prowess of the so-called black American people who invented probably everything of value. But nobody in the world thought to give us no $4 trillion to free us from so-called white supremacy, to help us. But they got $4 trillion to give to some Afghanistan. It wasn't just the United States. It was the UK. It was France. It was NATO, the UN. The whole world got together to give Afghanistan trillions of dollars. That's just the United States portion was $4 trillion. Imagine what the other countries gave them. But none of them gave us anything. And we sitting there looking silly, listening to some ridiculous music, talking about murdering each other, while they passing out billions of dollars, trillions of dollars to other countries. They telling the black woman there's not enough money for her and her children, so she got to get an abortion so she won't live in poverty. Yeah, you got $4 trillion for Afghanistan, for some Arabs. You telling the black woman there's not enough money, there's not enough land, there's not enough housing for you. You got to live in this compressed project building with 1 million other people. And then you got trillions of dollars for Afghanistan. You know. Yeah, like I said earlier, the burden of the taxes, the most person that pay the most taxes is the black people. Because blacks don't know how to write nothing off. Amazon don't even pay any taxes. They the richest country one of the richest companies in the world, pay zero in taxes because they can write off everything. You're not contributing nothing. And then if they don't write it off, they create their own foundation and they just donate to their own self. Donate to their own foundation. They don't have to pay anything. The blacks paying, really, the so-called blacks is subsidizing foreign countries when they open up businesses in the black community. These Arabs, you're subsidizing their whole country, and then they're taking your tax money and giving it to other countries while giving you $100 of food stamps and then telling you that's they're gonna. I just read something ridiculous. Biden allegedly increased the food stamp limit from $120 to $150. So this dude gave them $30. But he gave Afghanistan $4 trillion. $4 trillion is 4 million. But he gave you, if you was on food stamps, an extra $30. It's low life. And they went and voted for this scum. The money, I know I'm repeating myself, but the money that the government does allocate to the black community, the U.S., the local governments find ways to cut those, at closing your facilities, closing your schools, destroying your housing complexes. Then they have a surplus that they can reallocate for themselves. This is the scam that they've been playing on us, these devil, wicked white people. That's just the truth. I know it's misery. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, they gave these people $4 trillion and now they just left. They didn't get them no bill. The Taliban ain't gonna pay them nothing. You gonna pay them nothing. Some of them, you owe us for, we ain't owe you nothing. Get out of here. Thank you. They ain't gonna say no thing. You gonna thank you for building up our people, for educating our people for free. They educating our women, building our women's esteem, building their confidence, increasing their value, their intrinsic value, giving them the best education in the world. Thank you for doing this for our people. And now we're just gonna walk in and take over from here. We're gonna take over from here. We don't need your services are no longer needed. Biden running for the hills under the table, shivering. Gave them all the money, gave them everything, and then the black people here looking stupid because we ain't looking stupid really. I'm looking disappointed because they've been deceiving me, telling me there's not enough money, but you got all this money for some Arabs in Afghanistan, or for some Jews in Israel, or for some white folks up north, or for some illegal immigrants. Get millions of dollars for them, billions for the illegal immigrants, but you have nothing for us in our own country. You have not a dollar, nothing for us. Zero. And it was the HBCUs had to beg the government for money every year, but it was Trump that gave them permanent funding, and these idiots went and voted for Biden. It's just like when you just that idiotic, and then the black women, the so-called black women who suffered the most from this, they feel the most loyal to this. They feel the most obligated, and they get absolutely nothing from this society. They get the base, the bottom that this society has to offer, the black woman. They go and voting for some Democrats. Or whatever they vote for. I don't know what they voting for, but Bill Clinton went and tricked them in 1996 and told them in order for them to get the crumbs of this welfare, they had to get a minimum wage job. And they still vote for these people. Like, they didn't give you no trillions of dollars. They did not say, okay, we're going to build the black women up like they did the Afghanistan women. They actually built the Afghanistan women up. They really elevated the Afghanistan women. They didn't do that for the black women in America. They threw the men in jail. Gave you the worst housing, the worst communities to live in, the most poverty, They give you nothing, and then you feel obligated to vote for them, to keep them in power. If the black women look at what they did to the Afghanistan women in 20 years, in just 20 years, they elevated that whole population. And you look at what they did for the black women in 20 years. If they not disappointed or dissatisfied, maybe it's just the fact that in 20 years the black media has been just decimated. You know, we lost BET, we lost Ebony and Jet. We don't really have any communication really, other than on YouTube. So the people are just misinformed, possibly. But the U.S. government made a concerted effort to elevate the Afghan women, but they didn't do the same thing for the black women in America. In over 100 years, 150 years, they did nothing. Let alone for the men, you know. But the women, they didn't do nothing. You got the poverty, the welfare, ghettos. You get, I'm messed up. Yeah, I think I. Hold on, it's still on there. They've taken over YouTube too. It's now Daytube. They set up agents to represent black men and women in YouTube. Mostly these gender pimps. Yeah, I kind of noticed how